Hey everybody, this is Joanna at DevPost. Thanks for hanging out. We were just ironing out a couple of technical details. So thanks for joining us today. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of Hack Productivity and a couple general details to be aware of. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dan Canning, who's joining us from Microsoft and can respond to some of the more technical questions that you've been sending us in the chat window and over the other channels in the past couple days. And we'll have open Q&A and you'll be able to interact with us in real time here. So just to give you a couple brief reminders, the submission deadline is January 31st at 5 p.m. Eastern. So what that means is that we have to have all your materials, including your description, your video, your testing link, et cetera, received by 5 p.m. on the 31st in order for your submission to be eligible for prizes. So what we recommend is just to give yourself a cushion of at least a few hours so that we have time to review your submission, make sure everything's all set to go, and have time to let you know if something's missing or not working, like if your video's not loading or something like that. Just give yourself a little bit of extra time so that you don't do all this hard work to get your submission ready and then miss out at the last minute. Sometimes at the last minute, people are submitting and there's a lot of, the platform can get a little slow. So just make sure you give yourself a cushion. If you don't get a chance to tune in today, we will be posting the recording of this later. But if you have other questions that we don't answer for you today, you can always reach us at support@devpost.com, on the discussion board of the Hack Productivity website, or on the Stack Overflow Microsoft forum, and that link I'll just put in the chat window again here. So we're monitoring those channels daily, and we can respond to you there. Here's the link to that forum. And if you still need an extension for your Microsoft developer account, just also drop us an email to support@devpost.com and we can make sure to get that 3-month extension set up for you. So those are the basic reminders I wanted to cover. And now I'm going to just turn it over to Dan Canning, who can answer some of your questions that are coming in through the live chat and that we've received over the past couple of days as well. So without further ado, turning it over to Dan.
Hi, can everyone see me, hopefully? So my name is Daniel Canning. I'm a marketing manager within the Office Extensibility team. So I'm helping to run this and sponsor this event and work on with both developers and also with SIs and ISVs who are working on doing Office extensibility. So that's across all of the Office platform, whether you're taking advantage of APIs from Microsoft Graph, whether it's Skype for Business, you're doing integrations directly into Outlook, Word, Excel, even doing connectors into Teams and stuff like that. So I build programs to help promote those initiatives, and this is part of is one of those. So happy to join this morning. I have some technical resources as well who help support our program. Obviously, ended up with a little bit of a conflict where they're not quite on this meeting yet, but I can answer a lot of your questions, and ones that I'm not able to, I'll ensure that we'll get back to you guys within the next 24 hours to keep your momentum up moving forward on this event. So for the questions that have come in already, I should be seeing those in the group chat.
Yeah. If you're not seeing them, I can read them. It's in the right sidebar in the live chat.
Yeah, I have that open, but it's not, for some reason I don't see anything popping open in the group chat. Can you just give me some of the ones we have coming in so far?
Yeah, totally. So Animated Sentiments sent this question. He or she says, using OneDrive JavaScript file picker, I think he says IDK. I have a OneDrive account, but the SDK leads me to the Office 365 login page, which fails with my OneDrive login details. Why can't I go to the OneDrive login?
So it sounds like the question has to do with just the authentication. From in the scenario, is it trying to get to, is the OneDrive account that you're using the same one you're setting up for, I'm trying to think in that scenario if he's trying to get, or he or she is trying to get to OneDrive from another app. Is that where the login is the off page hitting when you're in your app or when you're trying to get to OneDrive? Where is it failing?
I'll try to ask the person this. Hang on. It's a she. Great. How are you accessing OneDrive? We'll give her a second to respond. We'll get back to you.
So my guess is they have an app that, or my guess is that she has an app that is going, that she's calling that. And also it'd be interesting to know if she can tell me what API she's using to hit that. I'm just going to make some notes here for some things I can follow up on too.
She said it was the JavaScript file picker IDK. Sounds like it's the JavaScript file picker SDK leads her to Office 365 login instead of the OneDrive login. And she cannot log in with her OneDrive credentials through the 365 site.
And it's having her hit, she's hitting the Office 365 login?
She's
and not
JavaScript IDK version 7.
Yes.
Yeah, and it leads her to the Office 365 login rather than the OneDrive login.
And I just out of curiosity, when she gets through that, is it failing at that point because it's
Yes.
a different account?
Yes.
Okay. I'm queuing that one up for an answer right now. So I'm trying to get an answer on that one as we speak right here.
Okay. I'm just gonna, hopefully we'll have an answer in a minute or so to that first question. And then I'm moving on to the next question, which is from Daniel Human, who says, the rules give lots of suggestions for how to submit software, but they do not say how to submit an Office add-in. Are we supposed to submit the XML manifest for sideload, or is there some other method?
Yeah, so just submit that's a great question, and that's something that we can add some clarification to up on the rules. That's a good question. Yeah, so provide the manifest file for sideload, and then we can take that and we'll load that up on our side. Great question.
Okay, so
to repeat, the answer for that is submit the XML manifest, and we'll take care of the sideload over here.
Okay.
You don't need to worry about putting that in if it's something that eventually you're going to put in a store, or you're going to go as far as putting it in one of our distribution channels, Office Store or apps, or AppSource. That's something that would take a lot longer than what we'd have for this contest. So you don't have to worry about that for our sake. But yeah, so submit the XML manifest and we'll sideload it here.
Okay, so they don't need to purchase a separate domain and SSL certificate for hosting?
No.
Okay. And then there was a question related to this that came in through email yesterday that I'd just like to quickly ask because it's relevant here, which is someone asked, they wanted to put their app or add-in into the Office Store ahead of the submission deadline, but they said there are a lot of licensing requirements in order to do that they're not going to have time to necessarily get to before the deadline. And they wondered if there was some sort of separate developer path that wouldn't require those same licensing details so that they could get their add-in up on the store more quickly. I said that I thought the answer was probably no, but that I wasn't totally.
Yeah, I would, I work directly with a team that helps get things through the store. And so that's stuff I can help on, but I'm curious what licensing, if they want to send some details on what licensing issues they're bumping up against,
okay.
Let me know. That's stuff that I can actually possibly do some help on.
Okay.
But once again, if they can't get it that far, then we can also, like as the previous question asked, that somebody can take care of side loading on.
Okay, great. I'll ask them for more details on what they're running up against with the licensing. So I just like to post another question that has come in through our discussion forum over the past week or so. I'm just going to put it in the side chat window so everyone can see what it is. Oops. Let's see. It's a little bit too long. Hang on. Oops. There's a little character limit here that's kind of messing this up. Sorry about that. Okay. So the first part of the question is, my project needs to read and extract the text content of a document in SharePoint, such as Word or PDF. And then he says, the next part, which is, I know on Windows there's a thing called iFilter, but is there a way to directly obtain text content from SharePoint? And the final part of the question is, if the answer to the above is no, then based on the fact that SharePoint provides a search service, I believe the search index will need to extract the text content no matter how. Is there a way to utilize this process or its results?
So I think I got that question as well, which is that if you're trying to get text content from a Word document directly that's hosted in SharePoint, the best way, there are, I guess I'll throw out a couple of things. One is over Microsoft Graph and through some native SharePoint APIs, you can get a degree of metadata about, obviously, a document. But if you're actually looking to get down into the text level of the index, then probably one of the best approaches for that is going to be getting that out of the search API. But that's also, I fully understand the question. I can see where you're going with that. That's also one, though, I can ping our SharePoint API experts and get you probably a little better detailed answer within. I'll get that back to you today. But I understand the question, and I would say yes. Probably the way you're going to look at that is through the indexed of the search result.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they would know. I'm sure. Who was it that asked that?
I don't have the name of the participant.
I'm sure the participant would know that the actual Word document has an XML backend, and that whole XML backend behind the Word document can be parsed down and out for its content. But if you're trying to read that up on when hosted on SharePoint, metadata you can get through APIs, including the Microsoft Graph API. There's some stuff we have out in preview for that, where you can get actual content from up on the SharePoint side. But then also, if you're getting actual content from within the Word document, a way to look at that is indexing. But as a reminder, of course, there's an XML backend behind that Word document as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to get to a question that I missed earlier that came in through the chat channel, which is from Mim, who asks, is there a simple way to check if the web-based add-in is loaded inside Office and not directly? I'm not sure I understand that exactly.
Is there a simple way to check if excuse me, repeat it?
Web-based add-in is loaded inside Office and not directly?
So I think this is the way I understand the question. If you build a web-based add-in for Office, you're going to have that XML manifest file, which you can run locally. And if you point to that locally, you can then go within obviously the context of Word, whether it's Excel or PowerPoint or Outlook, add that add-in to your client, and then you could see that fire up to this. That's from like the rich client side. The same thing would be if you were looking at Office Online. Is there some more clarification?
Sorry, yeah, Mim is clarifying, saying, I mean if it is loaded on the sidebar because the XML points to a URL.
If it's loaded on the sidebar because the
XML points to a URL.
Even in that scenario, is Min, are you having an issue where you're actually not able to see, is the app not loading up? Or is this one where you're worried about, like, can we load it on our own? So in other words, Min, are you not able to see your add-in in the Office client after you sideload it?
I'm just typing that question in the chat window. We'll see if they respond.
Because of course.
So, sorry, he says, so the app is loading, but it is accessible from outside Office as well, but only with the URL.
That's okay. So because the web app is just the web app obviously is just a web app. You can host that wherever you want. That could be hosted, in Azure, could be hosted in AWS, wherever you want to host that web app. Of course, you could get to it with the URL as well. The manifest file is really, if you think about it, the manifest file is just an XML blob that's pointing to that URL and putting the structure around it so Office recognizes it. So that makes sense. That web app should be able to render within Office with a correct manifest file. If the issue maybe is with kind of the manifest file construction, you can let me know on that. But yeah, that web app would be available through a URL as well.
Okay, I think that should be okay. He says that's a good answer. Thank you. So I just want to move on to the next question, which also came through our discussion board and email channels in the last week, which is, what is Microsoft's recommended approach in implementing SSO for its Office add-ins? Is there a different approach if it was an Outlook add-in, or is there a general guideline?
That's a great question. We actually have a really good set of articles around SSO and add-ins and the best approaches. And I'll make sure that the questioner on that or someone that can post right back as well in our discussion board is up on dev.office.com. We have a whole section that talks about ways to handle authentication. As you can imagine, that's some of the most common questions we get for Office development is on.
Dan, your sound just cut out. Dan, I can't hear you right now. Just checking, can everyone who's tuning in right now hear me? If you could type in the chat window, that would be great. It looks like we lost Dan, so just making sure that everyone can still hear me at least. If you could just confirm that you can hear me in the side window, that'd be great. Okay, so it looks like my audio is still working, but we've lost Dan for a second here. We'll try to get him back, but in the meantime, if you can keep typing your questions in the chat window, I'll record those and make sure that we do get to them when Dan rejoins us. So Looks like we have a question from Sri Lakshmi. Is there a way to get a normal account other than work or school to access groups? Can you clarify that question? I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. I think everyone missed my great monologue. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry, I was going on a great monologue about authentication models and and where we could find documentation on that. I think my tab may have closed. I apologize about that. I'm not sure what part I dropped off, but I was trying to describe that a couple of things to make sure people are thinking about from a resource perspective. So one is, up on dev.office, we have really good code samples, including JavaScript code samples, and we have a ton of OAuth and OSS code samples up on dev.office as well. So we have some good ones up in GitHub. So make sure you're taking a look up there for some deep and examples, including some code samples you can use for that. And the second thing, just on that same vein, is to remember also, just for any design components, everything we have for Office iconography, Office font, everything that we use for actually Office Online, we've open sourced all of that UI components called Office Fabric, and so all of that's up there as well. If you're thinking for the different folks who've kind of chimed in talking about building web-based add-ins, you can use all of our design components from that we use for Office. We've open sourced those, so you can use those to really make your add-ins look like a native part of Office.
Dan, is there a way you can email me the link to the add-in authentication guidelines that you're talking about so that I can post that in the chat window here?
Yeah, I will.
Great. Okay. So when you dropped out for a second, we actually got another question from Sri Lakshmi, who's asking, is there a way to get a normal account other than work or school to access groups? Means using Azure 2.0 endpoints, not Azure Add. I'm not. Do you need clarification? I'm not sure I understand that question.
Yeah. So they're trying to. Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, sure. So they say, is there a way to get normal account other than work or school to access groups? Means using Azure 2.0 endpoints, not Azure Add. That might be an autocorrect. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's asking to access groups. I wonder if that's trying to access groups from like an EDU account. Like, is the groups part of an EDU account, or is the groups part of?
So they sent some further clarification saying to access the groups API, we have to use the Azure Add authentication, which only authenticates work and school accounts.
Yes.
How can I use all features of group using Azure 2.0?
I'm just making a note on that one.
So is that something we need to get
back? I'll get back on that one.
Okay. Sri Lakshmi, just hang tight for 24 hours and we'll get you an answer to that. I'm just going to make a note of it so we make sure we get back to you. So I'm going to go ahead and post another question that we've gotten through the discussion channel. About Yeoman default add-in instructions. Hang on just a second. Yeoman default add-in instructions. When I follow the instructions listed here, and he gives the address for the getting started with add-ins, I end up getting the following message in a tab on the right-hand side of the page when I upload the manifest. Your connection is not secure. The owner of localhost has configured their website improperly, etc. Did anyone else follow the instructions and not run into this problem? What was an easy workaround? If they
don't, and who was the user on that again? Sorry.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't have the names associated with the question. Sorry.
Okay, so just that's a great question on the Yeoman part of things. If anyone has issues using the default Yeoman that we have, just let us know, and I can I'd work directly with the folks who actually build that, and so I can help you troubleshoot anything you need on kind of that Yeoman. It's not exactly going to line up to our timing for this event, but we're actually actively working on some clean updates for that as well that I'll end up publishing here in the next week or so. And I can keep you abreast of those kind of outside of this window. But like I said, I work directly with the PMs who are built at Yeoman, so I'm helping to help with that scaffolding as we need to, if you weren't able to get through that configuration.
Okay, cool. So we'll follow up on that question as well. I just wanted to make sure we put this out there because we've gotten several requests in the last couple days from people who have requested or signed up for an Office 365 developer account and then not received their confirmation emails. So Dan, if that happens, who should we direct them to, or where can they get help with making sure they receive their confirmation email?
Yeah, so if they, I don't know the exact alias that comes back from, but I'll figure out what alias that comes back from. Of course, let's give you the 101 answer of, check your junk folders as well, make sure it's not in there.
But if they don't receive it, is there a particular person or email they can get in touch with to follow up?
I don't know of an alias just to send questions on getting access to that account. But if anyone specifically, that's something that came through an individual or through the discussion board in the last couple of days.
That has come from several individuals emailing us directly.
Okay. I'll get an answer on that one right away too. I'm just trying to think of why they wouldn't get the confirmation email, and so clearly, they weren't able to get access to that account because they did not get the confirmation email.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So we're still hanging out for another 15 or 20 minutes. So if you have additional questions, please feel free to type them in the chat window, and we will continue to answer those as they come in. I think there was another one that came in through the discussion forum about, oh, actually, sorry, it looks like we covered most of the questions that have come in through the discussion forum about add-in testing and those things. So while we're waiting for additional questions to come through on the chat window, I'm just going to address some other common questions we get about online hackathons and just make sure everybody's clear on those. So one is, a question we get all the time is, can I submit more than one app to the competition? Yes, you definitely can, and we actually encourage that. So basically the rules are, as long as you're an eligible individual or team or organization, you can submit multiple apps. However, if you submit 2 or more solutions that are identical or extremely similar, we do reserve the right to disqualify the additional submission that is very, very similar to an earlier submission, and will require you to choose which one you want to send on to judging for prizes. But if the apps or add-ins are, differentiated from each other and based on different ideas and development and technical functions, then yes, all of those would be eligible for prizes. So that's one thing that we get a lot. Another one is, does my app need to be certified in the Office store before being submitted? So this is something we touched on already just a little bit, but basically the answer is, for this competition, is no. You don't need to have your app or add-in submitted to the Office store by the submission deadline in order to be eligible for prizes, but we do need to be able to test your app or add-in order to judge it and consider it. So you can submit a zip file for sideloading with your submission form or the XML manifest, as we discussed earlier. If you win a prize that includes a featured spot on the Office Store, which is actually one of the prizes that we're awarding through this competition, it'll be redeemable with the understanding that at that point your app or add-in will be added to the Office Store, and you actually have a 6-month window to get that done. So it's pretty lenient in terms of that. So that's, it looks like we have another question from Sri Lakshmi. How can I get a feed of all the activities of all user groups? Dan, I think that's a question for you.
How can you get a feed of all activities from all user groups?
Yes, or all an individual user's groups, I think is what he means. Like he says, a single query for all groups.
Okay, I can, let me get back to you on that one specifically. And obviously that's something they've looked at, whether or not there's an endpoint for that already in the Microsoft Graph.
Sri Lakshmi, have you seen if there's an endpoint for that query in Microsoft Graph? Just waiting for them to respond.
And I just emailed you over a good page for.
Oh, great. Okay.
For authentication, and there's actually inside that page is some documentation, and we even had an update. There's including code samples in that, and then I'm going to send you the second page that has some stuff we actually even just updated within the last 2 weeks on that same.
Okay. So Sri Lakshmi responded yes to the question, is there an API endpoint in Graph that handles a query for groups?
Okay. Let me find out that specific question on that one, which is basically, can I get a full activity feed for a group through Graph API, and what's the call for that? I can get back to you on that specifically.
Great. He also further says it's there for individual groups, but not for all groups. I see what he's asking. Okay.
For all groups.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I can directly go to the PM that owns that and ask. Okay,
awesome. So Sri Lakshmi, we'll get back to you about that in the next day or so. So hang tight if you don't mind. Appreciate it. So we've got about 10, 15 minutes left if everyone has additional questions. Do not be shy. We're hanging out to help you. So just post those in the chat window. And let me just see if there's anything else that's come in over email in the last minute or so. Dan, just while we're waiting for additional questions to come in, is there anything you'd like to say about Microsoft's sort of general focus on office productivity and workplace, sort of improving how people get their work done through the development tools that are available through Office and Graph and SharePoint?
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot, or we really have done a lot of investment over the last year, coming out of what kind of our one of our big events of the year, which is Ignite, that just happened in September, and then Build, which again will happen in the spring. But you'll continue to see a lot of investment for us, specifically across the entire platform for productivity. I think another way to look at that, kind of a proof point for that, is Teams. I'm not sure how much the audience has already gone out there and started to play with Teams, where we're evolving even like conversations as a platform as part of that developer story, and allows you to, whether your users are spending the most of their time in Outlook, or whether they're spending time in kind of more modern kind of channel-based productivity tools like Teams, that we've built ways for you to add into that white space directly. So you can add connectors. If you haven't maybe looked at connectors, even beyond add-ins, there's ways that you can direct your own app connectors into Outlook, into Teams, and really kind of driving whether it's line of business applications or other SAP applications, integrating with those. Another aspect to that as well that also goes along with the Microsoft Graph component is both Flow and Power Apps. So those are two things that also have a heavy productivity component, where it's really getting back to the kind of tooling where you have power users who can build out workflows, can build out forms, but with developers can take those same things and with some code even extend those further. So those are things I would maybe also keep in mind as you look at your solutions. Is tools that are out there that we've just released within the last 6 months. Things like Flow for doing workflows that connect to Microsoft Graph. Things like Power Apps to build internal enterprise-facing mobile apps off of enterprise data, and then Teams. So those are three areas where I think you'll see that we've done a lot of work. Other just components within Office 365, whether you're talking about Planner, which is also out there now, and then I've heard a lot of people ask about Groups, which is great. So there's a lot of different things that we've announced just over the last several months in that area. I'll give you another one too to take a look at for anyone looking into doing development in Outlook. Is actionable messages, right? So we just released actionable messages as well this past fall, where you can write an app that will allow someone to, within the body of an email, take an action like approve an expense report, or approve a contract, or assign a task actually from your other maybe SaaS app or other productivity app that you've written, where users can actually take actions on those directly within the body of an email. So think about a lot of the story here for some of these extensibility stories is you don't have to change user context, right? So a user is in their email, maybe that's where they're spending a lot of their time. They don't have to swap out of the context of Outlook to go and take an action from another application, but the context of that productivity scenario is actually enabled directly from within Outlook. So that's another one to think about, is actionable messages are also things that we just released this fall.
Cool. Okay. Thanks. That's really good stuff to know. So just everybody who's still tuning in, we have about 10 minutes or so left in the webinar. So if we haven't addressed something that you're concerned about, or if you have other questions, just send those along and we'll either answer them now or follow up and get the information you need. So just in the remaining time while we're waiting for those to come in, Dan, I know a couple of the prizes are pretty cool. So in addition to cash, we are giving out meetings with Microsoft Ventures, as well as trips to Build 2017 and exposure during that conference. Can you just give us a little bit of background on what people can expect if they are one of the winners of those prizes, and what the meetings will involve and what the conference experience will look like?
Yeah, so I think just kind of working back on those. So
sure.
One of the prizes that's really great is actually the attending Build, the tickets for Build. I don't know how many people in this audience has tried to get tickets to Build in the past, but Build normally sells out in a matter of minutes. So once we actually have the public tickets available, within a matter of minutes, I mean literally under 2 or 3 minutes, we normally sell out of all of the tickets for that. So it's a really popular event to attend this year. We're actually hosting it up in Seattle, about a month later than normal, and gives a little more space up here versus where we'd had it the last several years down in San Francisco. But it's a great developer event, and be able to interact and have some exposure and promotion directly within that community and within our office organization. And then we mentioned prizes like being able to meet with Microsoft Ventures. So being able to have a meeting with our Ventures team with startups, and occasionally actually loops them into incubators that we have here. And then even other promotional opportunities beyond the cash prizes, as far as a way to get promotion on different channels that we have here at Microsoft, both on our dev.office sites, but also we have other blogs like Better with Office and other places for promotion. So I think there's a lot of good opportunities for exposure and interaction with Microsoft and the teams that work on extensibility through this contest. So we're really excited to see the great work that and creativities that you're working on, and happy to help you try to get there as we close out here for the last few weeks.
Cool, that's great. Sri Lakshmi actually just posted a question. Is there anything like Google Forms in order to post something like a survey in groups?
It depends on if it's something that's going to be. That is one place where, for example, I would maybe look at Power Apps, as well as there is a Forms tool, Microsoft Forms, that you can also look to that. I need to look at specifically. I think either one of those you can associate to a group, but let me. I'm just going to make a note on that as well. Just like what's a couple scenarios of like Forms to groups. But look at Power Apps as one alternative for that. The other one, there is a Microsoft Forms that you can also use. Let me see if I can find a quick ping someone on the group side of things and see if I can find a quick answer for that.
Okay. We just have a couple more minutes, so we'll hang tight and see if a couple more questions come in. And just as a reminder, we will post the full recording of this webinar to the Hack Productivity site. So if you missed any part of it or you dropped in late, don't worry, you can review everything after the fact. Also a reminder, we will be having a second webinar next Wednesday, also at 11 a.m. So if you come up with questions in between now and then, or are working on your app and need some help or technical input, you'll have another chance next Wednesday. And we will get back to you about some of the questions that we didn't have a full answer for, and distribute that to everyone who is currently registered for the hackathon, so that everyone will be receiving those shared answers. So.
No, and those are really good. I mean, those come across some really good questions that have come across. Those are not surprising, some of the ones on auth, and I'll make sure you get posted up good samples on those. And I like the questions on group activity streams and forms back for groups. And I'll make sure you get some good answers back on that as well.
Cool.
And
All
then
right.
and once again, I'll just put in here, just re-put in some plugs for, alternative channels as well. I'm sure everyone has seen the Stack Overflow links. We have a really dedicated team of engineers who are very responsive and actually take pride in kind of in measuring their responsiveness up on Stack Overflow. So be sure to look at posting up there both Graph and Office.js questions up there, and you'll get really good responses. And then also to kind of re-pitch for dev.office, that website where you can actually get some good code samples and documentation. I would maybe point a little more to the code sample side of things for this audience. You can actually go up there and take a look at samples for different functions. One question I was just, as I'm going back over my notes, was a question for the Yeoman heirs. Was that someone who was live, or was that a question that came through the board earlier?
That was a discussion board question.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure I was addressing that.
Yeah. So I think we're just about at closing time now. So it looks like we don't have any additional questions in the chat window. So I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us for the last hour and for your great questions. And thanks to Dan for pitching in and helping us answer those. And we'll look forward to seeing you at next week's webinar and to getting in touch with you in the discussion forum and over our support email and in the Stack Overflow forum. So again, thanks for being part of this hackathon. We're super excited to see what you're building and all your amazing Office hacks. And we will be in touch with you in the next few weeks as we get up to the submission deadline. So I'm signing off for DevPost, and thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. We're excited to see your work.